Hi, this is Shayna Hiller from Build Your Personal Yoga Business, and today I'd like to share about how to price a yoga retreat. This is a common question that I receive from yoga teachers literally all the time, and they're like, I really want to run a retreat. How do I figure out what to charge? And not only that, but I see a lot of yoga teachers thinking that they know how to do this side of things and then coming out of the experience either breaking even or worse off, losing money. And hey, I know this terrain like the back of my hand from experience. I have lost money running retreats. I have broken even running retreats. And what I want for you and for all yoga teachers is to learn how to profit from running yoga retreats, because even though it was cool at the time to say, wow, that's great, I got a free trip, or I was able to break even, or I lost money, but hey, at least I was able to say I ran a yoga retreat. The amount of energy that you provide, not just for that week or 4 days of holding space and teaching on the retreat, but for all of the logistics and preparation leading up to it, is incredibly valuable. So it's worth it to have some sort of an understanding of how to create what's called a profit margin so that you are compensated fairly for your energy output. So depending on where you're hosting a retreat, what style of retreat you're hosting, because retreats can be many things. They can be virtual, they can be in person, they can be 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days. So I'm going to share with you the traditional model of a, let's say, week-long retreat somewhere else, meaning your students are maybe flying somewhere to Costa Rica or Bali or Hawaii, just speaking from my own experience, to come and spend a week with you doing yoga and meditation and eating delicious food, right? So there's a lot of programming involved in that. Chances are, if you are hosting a retreat somewhere else for a week or so, a few days, you've got to find a venue. You've got to find a retreat center. Now, I absolutely suggest finding and hosting your retreats at a retreat center, because then they've got the food down, they've got the accommodations down, they've got the yoga shala ready for you. Of course, you could totally do it your own way and get an Airbnb and hire a chef. There's literally endless possibilities when it comes to hosting retreats. That being said, I'm going to give you that full-on traditional hosting a yoga retreat at a yoga retreat center. And one of the reasons that this model is, I'd like to say, the simplest to some extent, is because there will be a fee that you've got to pay the retreat center in order to host your retreat. So every retreat center is different. For example, I'm going to be hosting a retreat in Bali in a couple of months, and they have a set fee that includes 2 meals per day. It includes a blessing ceremony upon arrival. It includes 1 massage for everybody who joins, and other things that it includes. That's the rate. That's the rate that I technically and my students have to pay the retreat center in order for them to be able to stay there and have the experience. Now, on top of that base price, so to speak, you want to start to tune in to what type of a profit margin, which is an additional fee, which is for your time, your teachings, your energy, what number, what upcharge feels appropriate for you per person. So first you want to take, what does it cost per person for the X amount of days that you're hosting your retreat, in order to pay the retreat center, have their meals, whatever it is that you want to have included. Like, what is the base price for that? Now, that means that if everyone were to pay just that price for the retreat, you would break even. In fact, you might even lose money. And the reason for that is because you probably are going to have additional expenses. For example, on my retreats, I bring arts and crafts items, I bring gifts for my students, I bring items for the altar, right? There's a lot of miscellaneous costs involved in retreats, which is important to consider when you are pricing. So there should be a profit margin or an upcharge, so to speak, on that base price so that you are covered, not just the retreat center, but so that your time and energy is fairly compensated. What that number is, I cannot tell you. I wish I could, but I can't. And that number depends on several factors. You can do it pretty linear if you want. Well, what are the amount of people, what number of people do I intend on having on this retreat? So say I desire to have 10 paying guests on my retreat, and I need to make X amount of money. I need to make $5,000 for that week in order to feel fairly compensated. That means that each of those 10 people, I'm going to add $500 to the base price so that I am earning $500 per person for those 10 people. Therefore, I'll earn $5,000. Hopefully that makes sense. I am nowhere near a mathematician, I promise you. I was a yoga teacher before I did any type of business stuff and business coaching. And even to this day, I've got people who help me with numbers and accounting and all of that. So this, if I can do this basic, adding that profit margin, you can do it too. I promise you. You've just got to figure out what's the base price and then what number feels appropriate to you based on the amount of people that you desire to have attend this retreat. But what is most important is that upcharge, that profit margin, must be included. Otherwise, you're not going to make any money. With experience, with more times running retreats, that profit margin may shift and change. It may shift and change for someone who's purchasing a shared room versus a single room. I go more in depth in terms of what these numbers and percentages should be in my private coaching and in Thrive, my online yoga business training program. But for now, it's really important to just know that you've got to choose, just like you name your own price for private yoga and for online courses and things like that you may create in your yoga business career. You also get to decide what that profit margin is for your retreats. I will say one more thing on this topic. This profit margin you want to take into consideration. If you're hosting a retreat by yourself is one number. If you're hosting a retreat with someone else, obviously that profit margin you're going to be having to split with someone else. So you also want to think about that. So for example, if I'm going to be hosting a retreat at a very fancy schmancy yoga center that costs $2,000 just to run the retreat, and I'm going to be running the retreat with someone else, let's say, and I want to make that $5,000, I've got to upsell, I've got to upcharge at least $1,000 per person in order to make that feasible. Meaning the retreat that actually at its base rate costs $2,000 just to be able to host it there. It's almost like you're renting space. I've now got to charge an extra $1,000. So then the retreat becomes $3,000. And then me and my co-teachers split $500 each per person who registers. Deep breath. Just want to start getting your brain in this vibe so that you can thrive, literally, because far too often I see yoga teachers coming to me after hosting a retreat with 15 or 20 people saying, why didn't I make any money? And that's because they're not charging enough. So it is technically basic math. If you have to watch this video again and again and take notes, that's absolutely fine, because that's really probably what it's going to take to really get clear with what needs to happen in order for you to profit. Now, I keep saying one more thing, but this is one more thing. You may say, well, I don't know, I feel weird charging extra, or how much should that number be? Depending on what the value is. Now, first of all, you are incredibly valuable. As mentioned earlier, your time, your energy, all the preparation it took to create this retreat and put it all together is worth that extra profit margin. Also, what you're actually including in your retreat determines how much extra per person you charge. For example, if you're only teaching yoga once a day and the rest of the day is free, I wouldn't necessarily charge $2,000 extra per person profit margin, because then it doesn't necessarily make sense, unless of course you're Oprah. Oprah, are you watching? Hello. If so, you can charge whatever you want. If you are hosting, let's say, workshops or additional meditations, or you're including excursions and you're paying for those as well outside of what's included, or your retreat is more programmed, it's more of an immersive style where you've got several sessions happening per day, well, you absolutely can elevate that profit margin. You can increase that number that you're adding on to the base price, because technically there's more included, therefore there's more value. And of course, when you're marketing and promoting your retreat, you advertise, you share the value that people are going to receive when they invest in what you've got to offer. So that gauge for how much extra you can charge per person for your retreat ultimately is determined by how much value you are providing. And of course, your energy alone is immensely valuable. And this is your work to really remember that for yourself, to remember your self-worth, and to be able to courageously step into that realm of saying, oh yeah, like I need to profit as well. I deserve to receive for the amount of energy that I'm giving, because retreats are a whole new game. They're a whole new terrain in teaching, and they're incredibly rewarding and can be incredibly lucrative as well. And I want you to experience that abundance and that profit really from those retreats. So hopefully this resonates. If you have additional questions about the wide world of retreats and how to profit from them and even how to structure them, I know many yoga teachers have a dream, and maybe that's you, of one day hosting a retreat. And please know that that dream can become a reality. You likely will never feel 100% ready. One piece of advice I could give to you, if you do have a desire to one day host a retreat or even a workshop, or just to take your teachings out of the studio and into a bigger format, even online courses and so forth, is first of all to take a retreat, to take an online course, to actually invest in yourself so that you have experiential knowledge of, let's say, how others structure and orient their retreats, so that you know what works, what doesn't work for you, how you would do things differently. You get some fresh inspiration from taking a retreat. So on that note, just saying, I do have 2 spots open on my upcoming women's retreat in Bali. I'm also hosting a 2-week training, which includes the first week retreat plus a second week facilitator training, which is credentialed for 150 continuing education units for yoga teachers. This is called the Embodied Wisdom Retreat, which you can just do as a 1-week retreat or a 2-week training that is designed to provide you with tools to provide one-on-one mentorship for women, embodiment practices, meditation techniques from the Tantric and the Taoist lineage that you can absolutely add on to your yoga skill sets, and to just provide you with the articulation of your message and your offering and a strategy to be able to attract your ideal clients and students to your services using your feminine energy. So this is for women. Again, retreat, 1 week, fill your cup, nourish yourself, see what it's like to actually be on retreat, and get that idea and that wisdom, those ideas and that wisdom to perhaps feed into the seeds that you're planting for your career. And of course, come for 2 weeks and immerse yourself in a deep dive training to empower, ignite, and inspire the next chapter of your business and your life. Any questions you have, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'm going to leave some links here to, first of all, Thrive, where you can learn more about the retreats, the pricing, the numbers, all of the nitty-gritty, magical back-end stuff that's really important, because you see the front. We think that the retreat is just, hi, I show up and I teach. But if you do want to earn more, and if you do want to feel empowered in your business, it is really important to learn the back end in a way that feels stress-free, step-by-step, guided. So I'll leave information about Thrive under here, as well as the Embodied Wisdom Retreat and training. As mentioned, there are 2 spots left on the retreat, only 2 spots left on the retreat, and 1 spot left on the training. I have to make it so that there is an even number of signups, because I do a lot of partner work in small groups. So if you feel called, let me know. I have really convenient payment plans to make the process feel smooth and inspired for you, especially if it feels like the right next step in your body and intuitively. So again, anything you have, questions, comments, what you want to learn more of, future video ideas, please leave them here. I'd love to share this journey with you, whether it's the training or the retreat. And let's remember that unless we continue to learn and fill our own cups, it's impossible to serve. It's impossible to serve, first and foremost, from a place of depletion, overwhelm, exhaustion, or stress. And so the most important thing we can do as light workers, as teachers, as leaders, is to fill our own cup, is to make sure that we're staying inspired, that we're taking care of ourselves. Every single year, I take either a training or a retreat or a structured time of nothing off, structured free time. I give myself 7 to 10 days of absolutely nothing each and every year as a reset. So if it's time for that reset, if you're at a turning point in your life or your career, you're not exactly sure what that next step is, knock, knock. this message is for you. Come and join us in Bali and have that embodied experience of transformation on your path. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Mwah. Namaste for now.